Tune into ESG Matters with Risk Insights, where we explore ESG with impact.
Earlier this week, Sinead Gallichan, a lawyer, was shot and killed near the CCMA offices in Johannesburg. Another life lost in a country still searching for justice, not only in the courts, but in the everyday lives of its people. But this story is not just about crime. It is about something much deeper. A country that has lived through history, endured injustice, and yet, over 3 decades later, is still negotiating what true freedom looks like. Hi everyone, and welcome back to ESG Matters with Risk Insights. I'm your host, Anushka Bogdanov. South Africa is a paradox, a country rich in natural resources, sunlight, talent, and resilience, yet still marked by townships, informal settlements, and deep inequality. More than 30 years later, after the end of Apartheid, millions still lack access to quality education, healthcare, housing, and economic opportunity. Despite all of this, South Africa remains remarkably peaceful, resilient, and welcoming. This is not a country defined by division. It is a country defined by endurance. The killing of a legal professional is not just a criminal act. It is a signal. It raises deeper concerns about the rule of law, institutional trust, and pressures building within society. Crime does not exist in isolation. It is often the consequence of structural inequality, unemployment, and the lack of opportunity. And in South Africa, those pressures are real and rising. Housing remains one of the most visible failures. Informal settlements continue to expand while access to housing finance still remains limited. This is not just a government issue. The financial sector has not fully innovated to solve this. Where are the scalable housing finance products? Where is the blended finance for low-income households? Where is the integration between banks and the national development plans? Without access to financing, housing remains a privilege, not a right. South Africa's greatest risk and opportunity is its youth. But we are facing extremely high youth unemployment, a mismatch between education and market needs, and policies that are not fully integrated with private sector execution. When government announces job creation targets, we rarely see how the private and the public sector will deliver together, how value chains will absorb labor, or how capital markets will support this transition. Plans without execution frameworks are not strategies, they are aspirations. There was a moment in South Africa's history, post-sanctions, where capital markets could have been used as a force for transformation. Companies with strong social inclusion and empowerment credentials could have raised capital, scaled employment, and demonstrated measurable societal impact. But instead, BEE transactions took place, enriching a select few at high cost, and banks making large investment banking transaction fees through M&A activities. But this linkage between ESG performance and capital allocation was never fully institutionalized. And today, we are still paying the price for that missed opportunity. South Africa has nearly 300 days of sunshine a year. And yet we sit with an energy crisis. The transition to renewable energy was delayed not only by governance failures, but also by economic incentives. Cheap fossil fuel energy supported profitability for corporates, for mines, and for shareholders. And the transition? It was postponed. Now, with mechanisms like the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM, the cost of that delay is becoming real. Exports to Europe will face higher carbon costs, stricter disclosure requirements, and reduced competitiveness. And still, carbon disclosure remains largely voluntary. We are entering a carbon-constrained global economy, yet carbon accounting, carbon taxation, and ESG integration are still not embedded in most African university curricula. They are largely offered as executive or short learning programs. This is a structural risk because the future of trade, capital, and competitiveness will be shaped by these very capabilities. This is why data matters. This is why transparency matters. And this is why innovation matters. The development of AI-driven ESG tools like ESG GPS is not just about reporting. It is about ensuring Africa is visible in the global capital markets, enabling comparability and preventing the continent from being left behind. Without data, there is no accountability. Without accountability, there is no trust. And without trust, there is no capital. Or capital for only a few. Corruption is often framed as a government problem, but that is only half the truth. Corruption exists across the value chain. The public sector, the private sector, intermediaries, international institutions, and even NGOs. No system fails alone, and no system can be fixed without collective accountability. Africa is the continent of abundance, with critical minerals, renewable energy potential, human capital, and untapped markets. Countries like India and China have demonstrated what coordinated growth can achieve. Africa's moment is coming, but it will not come through aid. It will come through education, green industrialization, capital market development, and strategic use of our resources. We should not accept a world where basic human rights like education, housing, and access to opportunity are treated as privileges. We should be uncomfortable with inequality. We should be impatient with inaction. And we should be intentional about building systems that work for everyone. South Africa has endured, and now it must rise. And in doing so, it can help lead the rise of an entire continent. Before I close, let us pause and remember Jeanette Gallichan, not as a headline, but as a life lost too soon, a reminder of the fragility of justice and safety in our society. And beyond our borders, let us not forget the innocent lives affected by the war. The schoolgirls in Iran, the children and families across the Middle East, from Tel Aviv to Beirut to Tehran, whose futures are shaped by forces far beyond their control. In a world increasingly defined by division and conflict, we must remain conscious of the human cost, the shared responsibility we carry to value and protect innocent life. May we call for peace for South Africa and for the world. As Albert Einstein reminded us, we are not separate, we are part of a whole. And as Nikola Tesla taught us, everything in that whole is connected through energy, through systems, through forces we often fail to see. And as Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has said, war can never be the solution. Peace must always be the answer. The challenge for South Africa and for the world is whether we continue to act as if we are divided or finally build systems that recognize that we rise or fall together. I trust you've enjoyed this podcast. Until next time, ciao for now.